advice. Good advice.
So it reaches Brent, reaches Egypt, reaches you. Not so much me, but whatever.
Do I have to get up? Why don't you sit here and I'll sit there?
Alright.
Like when I'm sitting.
Alright.
Because I'm going to be driving the presentation.
Yeah.
Should we give it a couple minutes, or?
All right, closing the doors. Give it a minute. I don't know if they're closing those other doors or not. Okay.
What? We're gonna take a selfie.
Oh, here comes HD. All right, are we ready? All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first annual, hopefully, Metasploit Town Hall. Thanks to everyone for coming. So I'm going to open up with a little bit of a quick story here. A long time ago, on an internet far, far away, H.D. Moore conceived of Metasploit. But he didn't do it alone. There were a couple people who started with him, and over time, that number of people grew and grew and grew. And the point of this story is that Metasploit has, from really its inception, always been a community-driven project. Open source has been our lifeblood from the beginning, and Metasploit would not be the thing it is today without a ton of people.
Many of them are here.
Yeah, many of them right here in this audience right now. So, quick stats just by GitHub. We have 317 direct contributors to Metasploit according to GitHub. And that number doesn't take into account people who back in the day just submitted raw patch files and then we committed them ourselves. So that's a lot of people when you really think about it. And we've been, what, it's 12 years now? Yeah, 2000. So started in 2003. Over 12 years, Metasploit has grown an unbelievable amount, and that's thanks entirely to the information security community, and we are very keenly aware of that. And so the purpose of this town hall is, you know, we have IRC, we have Twitter, we have our community website on the internet, but a lot of us gather here every year right here at DerbyCon. So we wanted to take this opportunity while we're here face to face with you to give you guys the chance to talk directly to us, ask the questions that you've got on your mind, give us feedback, tell us what you like, tell us what you hate, tell us what you want to see. So before we get started, I'm just going to let everyone on the panel introduce themselves. So,
Thanks, Dave. Hi, I'm Todd. Todd B on basically any media around. I'm security research manager at Rapid7. I did a whole bunch of Metasploit for a lot of years, and I still do. I still have commit rights, and it's open source. They can't take them away. Well, they can try. But I'll just fork, and you'll all come to my version. JDuck tried that. It worked out really well. I am my main job right now is I'm a hacker whisperer to reporters back and forth. I do a lot of press, and I try to make the things that we all do in the room accessible to a lot of people. That's kind of the name of the game. I'm open source in a big way, and I kind of see this as an extension of that. So, but enough about me. Let's talk about our friend Egypt.
All right. Wow, okay.
hey, Egypt, hey.
Oh, fuck you. I'm not doing it. I got suckered into that last year. No fucking way.
It's because we love you each other.
Love me with the back of your hand.
That's not what you said last time.
Yes.
It's like super hot.
Yes, you've fallen prey. You have fallen prey.
Do I have to like chug it?
Yeah, that's it. You're supposed to chug it because it's absolutely vile, and that's the only way that you could stomach it is to just drink it as fast as you can. Which is why mine is sitting right there, and it's not going to move. All right. No, you need to give me a drink that's not urine. So I've been a Metasploit contributor since 2007. I give basically the same spiel at all of my talks. I started working on Metasploit as a tool for my job because I was writing exploits and it made it easier to write those exploits. So because it was open source, it made it possible for me to do that. But more importantly, the open source factor allowed me to commit patches back and say, hey, look, this isn't working the way that I think it ought to, and here are some bugs that I have found, or things that have made it more difficult for me than it really should have been. It should have been easier, and these couple of changes make it easier for the next guy who comes along and has the same problem as me. And because of that, I started working on the project to make it more accessible to more people, and open source is what makes that possible. So I'm here because of open source. That's the reason I stay working on Metasploit. And it's very important to me that other people also contribute as well. We have so many great people working on this project, and almost all of them are hobbyists. So they do it on their own time, or like during a pen test when something breaks, they fix it real quick and then submit the patch later. Like those little changes, you don't know how important those are. I love those patches. I love those little bitty patches that come, and maybe I only ever heard from you that one time, and that's fine. But that is why I work on this project. I love this project, and I love you. So you can find me at those couple of places, and ask me whatever you like.
Hi, everybody. I'm a new guy. I'm a newbie. My name's Brent. I've been with the Metasploit project since last December, so not a whole long time. I'm kind of helping Todd out a little bit. Todd wanted to, become more of a hacker whisperer sort of fellow, go on a spirit quest, and so I'm sort of back in reality, helping him, get patches merged and get things tested, get things built. I worked on a lot of different things in the past. Probably one of the things that's more public these days is I work on the OpenBSD project as well. I got my commit bits like last April or so, and I've been doing LibreSSL and OpenNTPD, and people have been trying to sucker me into other projects to also start maintaining those, but we'll see. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. You can see me on the channel, and I've been basically helping out. I also work with William, Wei, and Juan, the three guys inside of Rapid7 that work mostly on framework. So there you go.
Hi, so I'm Dave Maloney, the like cosign. Yes, I know it was a really tool move to put the at the front of my handle. I realize that now. It's too late to change it. Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. It was many years ago. I started as a contributor. I was originally a penetration tester for a couple big companies that at least one of which everyone in this room has heard of. And I started as just a community contributor because I came up with a couple ideas and wanted to learn how to make modules. And fun fact, I have to sneak this quote into every presentation I ever do. The first time I ever got into the Metasploit IRC channel and said, hey, I want to start being a part of this, I said, but, hey, heads up, like, I'm a total noob. And the first thing HD ever said to me was, if you don't think you're a noob, you're not trying hard enough. And I think that's such a great quote and so important that it keeps being repeated, because to me, what that says is if you're not pushing yourself, if you're not doing something that you're a little scared of, that when you start out you think, I can't do this, then you're just stagnating, right? And so I've been really fortunate to get to become a part of the Metasploit team professionally and constantly be in a state of terror that I'm going to eventually prove that I am incompetent. Beyond that, I work also, besides as a software engineer, I consider myself the magic 8-ball at Rapid7, in that part of my job is to talk to you guys and figure out what we need to do, like what features need to go into Metasploit, what things we should be working on to stay relevant. And so you can find me on IRC and on Twitter as the like cosign. I'm not cool enough that I don't have a keybase thing, so yeah. God. So we're going to open this up in a second to have people come up, ask their questions, give feedback, what have you. A little caveat. I see you out there. I know who some of you are. You know who you are. Obvious troll is obvious. Let's try and keep it actually relevant. And so now is your time, guys. Help us to help you. Come up, ask any questions you have, give any feedback. Tell us, what do you like about Metasploit? What do you love about it? What isn't working for you? What do you want to see that we're not doing now? And, what can we do to help you be more successful in what you do on a day-to-day basis? So, who wants to come up and be the first? Well, just come up here and ask.
Just yell it out, don't repeat.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, that's good.
Right in the center.
Right, go back.
Stand over the ice, please. Yeah.
My question is more to them. I want to know how many in the room have either submitted an issue, commit, or an update, or somehow contributed, raised a hand 2 minutes ago.
Woo! Let's give all those people a round of applause.
To all the rest of you, you can. I believe in you. He loves you.
He does. That's the new bumper sticker. Egypt loves you. Go ahead. Yell it really loud. Okay, so the question was about some of the issues that people have run into with network reliability with Meterpreter, and so I'm going to hand this question over to Brent, as he is our resident Meterpreter expert.
Hi, everybody. Well, yeah, I don't know if I could be the only expert at Meterpreter, but we have put a lot of investment this last year into making Meterpreter a lot more robust. Network reliability is something that we've added fairly recently, the ability to do reconnects on disconnects, the ability to switch transports on the fly, to be able to do validation, to make sure that the guys that you're talking to remotely is the actual shell that you're looking for. There's still a lot more work to be done in that area, but we've made a lot of progress. We had the Meterpreter, what do you want us to do? We basically had like a survey this last year where we asked people what was the most important, what did you want Meterpreter X to be able to do? Stageless Meterpreter makes a big difference with regards to not having to stage the rest of the payload, be able to make it auto-load everything you need all in one bundle. Some other things that we've looked at have been things like SMB2 and then other things to support more modern Windows network protocols. Proxy support is greatly enhanced these days. We have added WinHTTP support so that we can just basically better connect and build to inject our own validation steps into like SSL connections and SSL handling. There's some really good PRs that are still sitting and waiting for review that enhance the the actual handler performance and the ability for it to handle retries and disconnects and that kind of thing. It's just basically kind of an ongoing process. If you have still, are you a framework user, or are you like someone using Pro, or what kind of additions were you using? What's that? Just Unity? Okay. Oh, Community. Okay. So I would say it gets better all the time. There's probably still a lot more work to be done in the area, but it's certainly advanced quite a bit in this last year. So if you haven't used it in the last year, or even like say the last 4 or 5 months, definitely give it a try and let us know what you see.
Yes, and that last bit is of course important, and that's part of why we're here. If you're seeing specific issues, reach out to us, IRC, Twitter, right here, right now, or a GitHub issue.
Yeah, hey, file a bug.
Yeah, file a bug. We do look at them. Who's next?
Out of that survey that you conducted, what was the most interesting
So the question was, what was the most interesting and unexpected feature request? Todd, do you want to answer this?
No, I think you do.
Well, I think the most interesting thing to me was that Mubix wrote us a novel. We said, hey, what are the things you want Meterpreter to do? And he included everything. Meterpreter as an entire domain. There were...
I thought it was interesting to find out that we had 5 times as many OS X users as we had Windows users. We put a lot of effort into supporting Windows, but at least according to the survey, a lot more people are using OS X than Windows these days, and basically almost an order of magnitude more. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Definitely things are changing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We have a lot more Windows users than I ever expect. Like whenever we look at demographics and say like what operating system are you running Metasploit on, we get more people running Windows than really makes sense at all to me. Right, which is any number above 0, as Josh so well put it. Yeah, so there's another question in the back. Okay, so I think the question, in essence, was how do we look at other people's work and incorporate it into Metasploit without just outright stealing it, right?
So there's a couple parts to that, right? Again, Metasploit is community driven. And there are a lot of other great tools out there that are doing stuff, whether you're talking about PowerShell stuff with PowerSploit, this PowerShell Empire thing, or you're talking about something like SQL Map that does something that Metasploit really isn't set up to do in the first place. Our first step usually is to try and reach out to those other community members who are also doing open source projects, and try and open a dialogue with them. How do we make our tool and your tool work together? Like, why should we try and reinvent something that somebody else has already done really well? Like, I know it's been at least 5 years now of going back and forth every now and again trying to reach out to the SQL Map guys, and they're always like, yeah, we'd love to integrate with Metasploit, but then they're written in Python, we're written in Ruby, and so we're it's a thing that we need to address, but I mean, to me, the solution lies as much as possible in integrating our efforts and working together, because it's not competitive when you're talking about open source tools. It's collaborative.
Yeah, and hi. Right here. Okay. One of the things that, yeah, you like that? GIF later. One of the things I really like a lot about there is a Metasploit ecosystem, right? Like we're part of like a larger open source thing. I'm a giant fan of things like Cobalt Strike and MSF GUI and things that run on Metasploit, because it forces my employers who pay me to do good. Like it forces us to like not just sit back on these like super comfortable laurels. We have to innovate up just to keep up, and I think I don't know, I think we've been doing a pretty good job at that. If there are like must-have features that are like locked up in some proprietary lockbox, you know, that we accept pull requests for sure. Like, don't go and ripping people off, and we want to do attribution correctly and say like, hey, thanks a lot to whomever. I think a great example of that is like all the Mimikat stuff, right? So like Mimikat's is super awesome. It's a mechanism for pulling hashes out of memory, right? And we've been working with how do you pronounce his name? Gentile Wiki?
Ben Delpy.
Delpy, yeah. So, yeah, we've been working with him for years and years, and he's a super cool guy and very humble and really a pleasure to work with. So, I'd love to see more of that. We work with the Nmap guys a lot. We work with, and by the way, we support like 40 or 50 import formats. So, like, if you go and do recon with like some other tool, we're happy to take their data. So, who else? Hey, you there? Awesome. Oh. Hey, shut up. Like, stop owning us kind of feedback? Okay, so the question is, do we ever get people yelling at us for owning them? Can I take this one? I have the mic. Yeah. Okay. So a big part of my job as a hacker whisperer, let's see if I can even stand, that'd be cool. Oh, cool, I'll go over here. Yeah, I know, I'm like blocked off from like half the room. So a big part of my job is dealing with vulnerability disclosure. Either that comes from internal research from Rapid7 or some Metasploit users that are like, hey, I have this ODA, I don't know what to do with it, and I don't want to go to jail, can you help? And I'm like, yes, I also don't want you to go to jail. So the feedback we typically get, so the examples the asker gave was like HP and Microsoft. Outfits like those, Microsoft especially, are super mature when it comes to vulnerability handling. If I go and tell Microsoft, hey, there's a bug, we have a Metasploit module, hope that's cool with you. It's a little more detailed than that. But typically, the responses we get from vendors is like, thank you very much. From mature vendors like that. Thank you very much for the bug report. We will have a patch. I think that's awesome because we're going to release this Metasploit module here pretty soon, so get right on that. Our process is typically tell the vendor, give them 15 days to like do whatever they need to do. We work with CERT a lot up in Pittsburgh, CERT CC or the CERT division or whatever they refer to themselves as now. And we tell them, then after the 15 days and then 45 days from there, we and CERT tend to disclose at the same time. And when we disclose, we tend to disclose like with a Metasploit module, so you can prove it. Which I think is important. Now, as far as other vendors who may not be so mature in their vulnerability handling model, those answers go all over the place. They go from total silence, because we can't find them at all, like every mail address bounce, to people being very angry about it, which usually ends up getting followed up by a phone call or some more emails saying like, hey, no, we're not like trying to be bad. We're telling you about a problem. And I know that it's your baby and it's very hard to hear that your baby is ugly, but it's a little ugly like right there, and you could just like fix that up. It'd be super easy. And so that's typically, and then almost always, those conversations end up positively. Almost always, because in those cases, often I'm the first one to ever talk to them about security with their product. And so I try to at least appreciate that it is hard to hear, and it is like it's an emotional event. And so we try to, use that against them to get them to, patch their shit. So that's it. Who is next? Choose. Oh, over here. What? There was somebody. Oh, yeah. Sorry, you're like under a light. Yeah. Hi, Biss.
Remember, obvious troll is obvious.
Yeah. Can we go back a slide?
Background the job. Yeah, okay, so the question there is, you're testing creds against thousands of hosts, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. It's spewing successful logins because you're owning everything. So there's tons of output on the console, and is there a way to deal with that, like, more cleanly, more betterer. The console output is the big problem there. Everything else is fine to run in the background. You can, using a little bit of clever IRB usage, you can suppress all of that output by giving it a nil output file. And by doing that, it should suppress all of the output, but you'll still get the database logs. So yes. It's not super simple because that's not a use case that we have optimized for, but it is certainly possible, and you'll still have everything in the database. So you'll have all of your successful logins, you'll have all of the username and password tied to a core object in the database, and I'm going to be talking about the credential model a lot more in my talk tomorrow. So if you want to see some more details about that, we can talk about it then, or feel free to hit me up later for more details of like the nuts and bolts of how credentials work. But the short answer is yes.
I want to turn this around for a second in the same spirit that Rob did for a second and ask you guys a question. Out of all the people here who are using Metasploit framework, how many of you are running it with a database? Just show of hands. Okay, how many of you run it with the database disabled? Okay, thanks, Josh. Okay, that's really good. That's something we've always been trying to get a handle on because the database does enable us to do a lot of things, but you know, there's the question of how strongly tied that database should be to the operation of Metasploit. So it's good information to have. Minga, I think you had a question.
First off, better LDAP liberation client. So you have to use third-party tools to integrate LDAP and have it imported to the database. Second off, is there like a set of tricks that when you do a pull request for like a new ODay besides constantly pinging you like, hey, there's been no progress in a week. Hey, there's been no progress in a week. What's like the best way to actually get something? Is it to do it right the first time and it'll be perfect? That would be great.
Try harder. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I think I just violated a copyright. All right, so let me address your first one, and then these guys, one of these guys will probably be better for the second part of that. The LDAP thing, there's a couple places where that's come in more. Meterpreter has ADSI support now. So if you're on a domain member, you can do full LDAP queries directly from your Meterpreter console, and it will go directly to your domain controller. Also, earlier this year, I added a feature to Meterpreter for when you get a Meterpreter shell on a domain controller. It will actually pull down the ntds.dip file from a shadow copy on that machine and then parse it live. And it does it in a live streaming manner. So a lot of those third-party tools that you would use to do that load everything in memory and then spit all the hashes out for you at the end. Meterpreter doesn't do that. It actually uses the JET database engine to connect directly in and pulls the accounts in batches of about 10 at a time and streams them back to you and does the next 10 and the next 10. So if anything happens to your session while you're doing that, you still got as far as you got and you didn't lose everything. And compared to other tools that I won't name that are set up to do the same thing, we only cause a 1% CPU utilization increase when doing that, opposed to some other ones that peg the CPU. As for the pull request process, Brent or Egypt, which one of you wants to take that?
Talk about pull requests. All right, so first of all, shorter pull requests are usually pretty easy to merge. It's pretty obvious what they're doing. Things that change the library, they reformat all the code in the library, something like that. Those sometimes take a little more time. It's always kind of a debate about whether we should just fix things up silently or we should just wait for the contributors to come back and fix up whatever it is. Running something like Rubocop or something like that against your code is always a nice bonus. We do certainly welcome people who are willing to clean up old code, but it's usually best done in the context of I've also fixed some things, and so while you're testing it, by the way, you can also come in and fix some 10-year-old coding style practice that we've got maybe in a library or something like that. But yeah, in some cases, yeah, the squeaky wheel does get the grease. I mean, I have to admit that sometimes when someone's vocal about a pull request, they're like, oh, well, that's interesting, or versus, oh, here's something that's kind of silently here, it's really big, and they just kind of get deprioritized. So I definitely just keep poking us. That certainly does work. What would be a better way to prioritize things like that? Go ahead.
Is if there was a way to have a voting system where other people who have had the same issue could mark up and say, yeah, this is something which I could need. Because right now, about the only thing they can do is either leave another comment, or if they don't have a comment other than I have the same issue, then they don't leave the comment. And so we just have a bucket of pull requests, and nobody knows what people really want in terms of a running tally. So that's what I would recommend doing.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. So basically just almost like a voting system, but
like a thumbs up.
Can we do that with GitHub? I don't know. What's that? Oh, we need a like button. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Oh, we can look into it. I'm pretty sure there are ways to get something like that done. There are external ways.
GitHub has been.
Go ahead.
GitHub has been really responsive to us because we're one of the biggest projects on GitHub. So whenever we were like, hey, you guys should do this, they're like, oh yeah, we should do that. So making a feature request to GitHub might be the right solution for that. I also want to point out though the importance of keeping your pull requests small, especially if you're dealing with library code. Like if it's a module, that's fine. Modules can be as big as they need to be to accomplish their task and get you a shell someplace. But library code is notoriously dangerous to deal with because our testing is not fabulous. So if you can keep it small and tight, it's a lot easier to review. Lots easier. Goes a lot faster. But so you had the 1.5 year long pull request. That is absolutely a record. The average though is around a day.
Including the 1.5 years.
Yes.
Yeah, without loggers.
Right. Including all the pull requests ever, we average about a day to land. So I know there are some that suck, that are they make big changes and they touch code in the background that might affect a lot of modules, and we have to be really careful with those. With modules, they land really fast for the most part.
Yeah.
Your pull request whenever possible.
Thank you. Yeah, you just reach into my mouth and take the words out. Yeah. So finally, keep them small, keep them compact, and have some kind of reproducible test. It can be as simple as like run this thing and have this other thing set up. If you're doing things like we had a bunch of long pull requests. About like Microsoft SQL Server, like in like a federated domain context, and that thing was like a giant hassle to set up. But the guy who sent them in, Scott Sutherland, he had included like these amazing docs for like, and here's how you set all this crap up because I know you guys don't work in Windows crap every day. That was great. And GitHub in particular. Really allows us to not be a bottleneck. If something is super rad and it works and we're just being lame and not answering the phone or whatever, by the way, you have a call. What a lot of people don't know, or maybe they just don't do it, is that you can fork from other people's repos to your own repo, and you can make changes, and you don't have to like ask permission or anything. You can just do this, and you can help a third and fourth and fifth parties can all collaborate on things fairly easily. I'm doing easily in quotes because nothing in Git like the first time is easy. But like if you've done it like 2 or 3 times, like I fork crap from these guys all the time and kind of go back and forth that way. So if you have someone willing to help like test your sit, then please do it, because like if there's more than one contributor on it, like that gives tons of velocity and like positive inertia, like keep moving inertia on pull requests. So. We're always looking for ways to be faster and better and stronger at landing community stuff. We are constantly behind. That's just kind of the name of the game when it comes to popular projects, but hopefully not too painfully slow. So.
And if you've never contributed before, but you want to get started, it's fantastically helpful to us to just come in and say, yes, I used this module and it worked. That is so useful. And it's simple for you to do. All you need to do is download this new module that they've created. You use their pull request branch and run it against the thing. And then I have proof that the thing works from somebody who didn't write it. So it's fantastically useful. Please do that.
All right. What do we have about 10 minutes. Oh, there's somebody over here? Where? Go. Hash them.
So the question was about the default method for taking domain hashes in Meterpreter. So it's a complicated thing. So back in the day, Meterpreter used LSAS injection as its default method for all hash dumping, right? And hopefully everyone in this room knows why that's bad. It's extremely dangerous. And for workstations, we eventually created a post module that uses an alternative method to steal local account hashes. So if you run the default hash dump command in Meterpreter on a domain controller, it is still going to do LSAS injection, and you will still get your domain hashes that way, but it is dangerous, and you can crash the domain controller. There is a post module called Post Windows Gather Credentials Domain Hash Dump. You run that post module on your session, and it will use that Meterpreter library to do the parsing for you and display it to your console, save it in your database, and do all of that. So the hash dump command in Meterpreter will still be doing LSAS injection. Now that module has 2 different ways of getting ntds.dit that depends on the version of Windows that you're using. Server 2003, anything before 2008 R2 is going to use volume shadow copy directly. And it will make a volume shadow copy ntds.dit out of that shadow copy, and then it'll do a repair operation on it because it'll be in a bad state. And then it'll do the parse. 2008 R2 and beyond added this really nice tool called ntdsutil that It literally makes a copy of everything you need to clone your domain controller. So if you run this, it will pause the state of that database, make a shadow copy of it, your registry hives, your SAM file, all of those things, and put them in a folder somewhere for you. So, yes, hooray. Thank you, Windows, for doing all my work for me. So if the module will actually detect what operating system you're on, and if it's on 2008 R2 or later, it will use that method, which is cleaner. And if it's on an earlier method, then it will fall back to volume shadow copy. But that's just to get the copy of ntds.dit. Once it starts parsing, it's the same mechanism either way. It should be whatever's in the database at that time. So it's what's in ntds.dit at the time that you run the module. So it will take a copy of ntds.dit as it exists at that exact moment in time and copy it. So whatever's in that database at that time is what you get. Also, you get all of the saved password history hash, the hashes for the history, which is anywhere from 12 to 24 saved passwords back. That's not my understanding of how that works, but I can't guarantee that. I would have to look further into that behavior to be able to fully answer that question. I'm sorry? You're saying it could be a domain replication issue? Right, yeah. So what he's saying is, they could be logging onto like a site domain controller or a backup DC, and it's not replicating over yet. And that might be what you were saying. But everything, ntds.dit should be the live journaling of everything in your Active Directory domain at that time. So that's where everything should be. Yes, sir.
Yes. So the question is about reverse port forwards, where you have a compromised system on the inside and you want to set up listeners on that machine for other things to talk to, so you can do like browser exploits and that sort of thing. The basic mechanisms are there, and you can do some of it through IRB, and there's another very long-standing outstanding pull request that allows you to use a reverse listener COM. So you have a reverse listener bind address, and that tells Metasploit what address to listen on. But this pull request would also add a reverse listener COM, which you can give it a session number and say, when you create this service, start it there. But that hasn't been landed yet. Again, it's library code that affects every module. So it's difficult to guarantee that it's not breaking everything.
Feel free to test it out, though.
Yes. Actually, yeah. Use that pull request, check out that branch, and try it. And if it works for you, put a little +1 in the pull request. And okay, so Meterpreter crashes. Okay. Okay, well, having that feedback on the pull request would help. Yes, like just tell us what you've tried, tell us what worked, tell us what didn't work, and that will go a long way to determining whether it's worth landing or what we need to fix to make it work.
We have time for maybe one more quick question if anyone has one, or feedback, or Minga, you've got?
Whatever happened to the antivirus stuff we were talking about this before, antivirus information, did that ever, did you ever come to a conclusion and implement it so that?
So yes. So I gave a talk 2 years ago, I believe, here at DerbyCon on antivirus evasion research that I had done, and there's twofold to that. One led to features in our commercial product, Metasploit Pro, and part of the reason that we don't release that is as soon as we put anything in framework, the AV vendors immediately write signatures for whatever we put out there. So unfortunately, the technique that we came up with for that would not last very long if we made it public and open source, as much as I'd like to make it open source. However, it did lead to some changes in how our executable payloads are generated. So when I say executable, I mean where we put our payload in an actual exe file and is dropped on disk. We made some changes to how that shellcode gets injected into exes, and it resulted in, there's a method that preserves the original functionality of whatever exe you use. So if, say, you take calc.exe, it will actually create new segments of memory, put our shellcode in there, and it'll do some clever jump tricks so that when you run the exe, it runs the payload off in a thread and then does some sneaky stuff to hide that thread from any kind of debugging and whatnot, and then jumps back to the main program. So some of it has made its way into framework. Some of the large bulk of it is kept in our commercial edition, partially just to keep it away from the AV vendors.
Because AV vendors don't have any money. Also, and you'll see tomorrow in Egypt's talk, I'm totally stealing some of your thunder. It's, instead of evading antivirus, it's sometimes more fun just to own the antivirus, and and so we have several modules that Egypt will be talking about tomorrow that target security software directly.
Okay, so we're just about out of time here, so I want to wrap this up by saying, first of all, thank you to everyone in this room for coming. Thank you especially to those of you who have been an active contributor. Those of you who haven't, go ahead and give it a try. Don't feel intimidated. We don't bite, I promise. Unless you ask real nice, maybe. And thanks to DerbyCon, again, for letting us come here and do this. This was, to my mind, this was the only venue where it made sense to do this, because it's such a nice, tight-knit community feel here. We wanted to have everyone feeling casual and laid back, and without this environment, we wouldn't have been able to do something like this. So, thank you, everybody, and make sure to thank all the staff here at DerbyCon for putting this on.
Was this useful?